Hi there, and thanks for joining me again. Today, I have before me what is right now being hailed by many as the holy grail of drum machines, the TR-1000. It is a culmination of decades of Roland's experience in drum sound design, sampling, and sequencing that also borrows a few of its competitors' greatest hits, and finally, after all these years, the return of true analog circuitry in a Roland drum machine. Now, if I'm being frank, I was a bit skeptical about the TR-1000 since the hype for it was unlike anything I've ever seen before. So could this actually live up to such high expectations? Well, a friend of mine was generous enough to let me borrow it for a few weeks, and since it's way too deep to make a fully comprehensive review in so little time, I thought instead I'd share a few thoughts on it while we mess around so you get a general feel for the machine. I'll also tell you about a few of my gripes with it, a couple of hot takes, and the inevitable comparisons with other gear that this competes with, like the MPC and Electron gear. Like I said, Roland are not sponsoring this video, and to my knowledge, they have no idea that my channel even exists, so for all who worry about bias and shilling, I hope this is kosher enough for you. This video does have a sponsor though, the good folks at Analog Cases, but more on them a bit later. Okay, so let's start with a few hot takes, shall we? I am not a fan of Roland menus and UI in general. I've had lots of their gear, including the SB404SX and the MK2, MC707, TR8S, and the Roland Phantom. The two main reasons I'm not a big fan of the Roland UI is that their devices tend to rely heavily on button combos that you have to memorize, as well as menu systems that, while functional, seem to be stuck in the 80s for the most part, and I was worried that this would be the case for the TR-1000. I am happy to report though that so far the button combos are either labeled or mercifully kept to a bare minimum, with the shift button over here doing a lot of the heavy lifting in most combo situations. The menus, while still not being my favorite, are a big step forward as far as Roland screens and menus are concerned. They get the job done and everything is pretty self-explanatory, so if you're already used to the Roland way, they should all make a lot of sense from the get-go. One thing that stands out to me about the TR-1000 is that the front panel is insanely customizable. You can just about change what everything you see here does, like having the tune knob be a pan knob instead, or having the decay knob control the reverb and delay sends. On each instrument track, you can literally assign each one of these knobs to up to 4 parameters at once. This might very well be one of the killer features of the TR-1000, since on a machine like the MPC or the OPXY, you'd have to buy an additional MIDI controller like the Oxy Instrument C16 or the Newside Drop to get a similar level of control as you do here. You can also pick and choose different master effects as well as different analog filters. That means that no two TR-1000s will ever be the same, as performers will be able to tailor their instrument to do exactly what they want and control what they specifically need during their shows, which I think is a big part of why musicians seek out hardware in the first place. Okay, this next thing is a big one. As a huge die-hard fan of the Octatrack, as soon as I saw the fader with the word morph on it, my gas levels went through the roof. I've been begging for someone to make an improved iteration of the Octatrack scene fader for years now, and this seemed like it was finally going to be able to do it. The morphing works a lot like on the Octatrack, where you can set parameters to change per track, and you can have up to 16 morph states, but somehow it still feels a bit better on the Octatrack than it does here. It might be that I'm just more used to it, and maybe if I had more time with the TR-1000, I might change my mind. As it stands though, this is a killer feature to have in a drum machine / sampler, and I think Roland did a great implementation of it here. As I said, the TR-1000 borrows some of its competitors' best ideas, and I think two great integrations are the morph knob and something very similar to step trig conditions. If you hold down a step, you can apply probability as well as trig conditions that are here called cycles, with multiple options to choose from. You can also set the velocity, sub-steps, nudge it off the grid a bit, and on the second page, you can even set up more parameter locking per step. A small gripe I do have on this bit is that I really wish that the tuning here would be in half steps or semitones instead of percentage values, which frankly mean nothing to me. The TR-1000 is a pretty big piece of machinery, so you'll want somewhere sturdy to put it on. Thankfully, Analog Cases just launched a new line of customizable performance stands that should do the trick. Introducing the XTS Performance Stand System, an expandable and adaptable solution for electronic hardware and DJ gear setups. Performance stands deliver incredible flexibility and versatility from the studio to the stage. They can transform instantly into a portable DJ table, a two-tier keyboard stand, or a multi-shelf synth rack holding numerous machines. As your setup evolves over time, the XTS system's modular design allows you to adjust without needing to buy a new stand. The base stand has an ultra-stable 37-inch wide frame that stays at a fixed width for maximum support up to a height of 35 inches. Once you've experienced this stand's stability, you'll never go back to the old-school X stands. To see all the available options, just check the link in the description of this video. Thank you, Analog Cases, for supporting my channel. Now, back to the video. Now, going back to actual sequencing, I have a few nits to pick here and there. For example, you don't get a scale or chromatic mode, something that the 16-year-old Octatrack has, and Roland's own SP404 has as well. The snapshot mode allows you to set different pitches, and you can individually map out a scale, but that is tedious and very time-consuming. In this track, I individually set different pitches to a saw oscillator, which was not exactly fun times. Furthermore, you have to record these snapshots using motion rec to keep the notes in there, which means that if you clear out a motion automation, your pitches will get stitches. They're gone. The absence of a chromatic mode is something that's been mentioned by a lot of other reviewers, so if a firmware update is on the way, I would expect this to be high on the list of things to get in here. Lack of a chromatic mode aside, I think that Roland really made it extremely easy to get very nuanced and expressive with the way you sequence in here. For example, you get multiple pathways to sequence notes, like playing instruments live or classic TR Rick. By the way, my beats have never been humiliated by a manual before, so sick burn, Roland. Respect. You can input steps as custom sub-steps, as well as being able to hold shift for ghost notes. All this gives you great freedom and flexibility to input notes and build your tracks in here. Speaking of freedom and flexibility, I think that where the TR-1000 really shines is in live tweaking and performing. One of the reasons that I decided not to make an official review was that every time I sat down and tried to learn this machine, I'd quickly get sidetracked and when I started tweaking away, and instead of studying it, I'd just be off to happy accident land for hours. In that sense, this might be one of the most intuitively fun machines to play that Roland has produced in years. I have to confess that I do prefer analog engines to digital ones in synths. In drum machines, I'm fine with samples like on the MPC. That being said though, the analog engines here sound absolutely beautiful, and if you've always wanted to have that classic Roland grit, I think you're going to find it here. Beyond just the analog engines, if you love percussions and drums, it's fair to assume that pretty much any sound you'll ever need is probably going to be in here somewhere among the thousands of presets you have to choose from, be it from analog engines, FM, PCM, ACB, CNN, CBS, you name it, this thing's going to be able to play it. Okay, so now the elephant in the room. This thing costs $2,700. Do I think it's worth it? So first, a bit of context about where I'm coming from with this. Save for a few exceptions, I'm not big on price shaming, generally speaking. I believe that gear just costs what it costs, and whether or not the instrument is worth the asking price is ultimately down to you as a consumer. Me, for example, the 3 most expensive instruments I've ever bought have been the original Polybrute for around $3,000 at the time, which you could argue is just a synth with 6 voices. The OPXY, which was $2,300, which many say is just a hipster toy. And finally, a Fender P-Bass for a little over $2,000. That's just 4 strings and a tone knob. What I'm getting at here is that pricing is heavily subjective. The thing is, I bought each one of those instruments because I really believe that they would give me what I was looking for, and I believe that they would be worth spending that amount of money at the time. In the case of the TR-1000, I definitely think that lots of people will find what they're looking for here. Lots of people will enjoy the heck out of it, and lots of people will feel that they paid a fair price for what it brings to the table. Me, on the other hand, though I absolutely love the idea of it, and I'm actually thrilled that this thing even exists, it's just not a device that I want as a centerpiece for my music making, and it's way too expensive to have as a sidekick, so I think I'll pass on this one. Instead, I'll be saving up for when Roland decides to make a new Jupiter 8. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful, or at least entertaining. Have a great week. I'll see you next time.